Joe, let's start off with the Clemson Tigers here, as we both have them as the number one team, and we project them to win the ACC, the ACC champion from a season ago. What do you think about the University of Clemson going into 2025?
Look, we've been so high on Clemson and what we expect from them this upcoming season.
Yep.
They quite simply, Blake, they have a top 5 roster in college football, and they have every bit of potential to go on a national championship run. They have to be everybody's pick to win the ACC. I think that I listen to a lot of college football shows, and I feel like I hear a lot of mental gymnastics to make it feel like there's a shot that this doesn't come to fruition. Their defensive line is deep, and it is loaded with first-round talent. Their linebacker room is explosive and athletic. Their secondary is led by Avion Terrell, who could potentially be a first-rounder as well. And their offense caught a lot of steam at the end of the season, right when it needed to, with their receiver room. After we spent the beginning of the year criticizing them, they started to show signs of improvement with their very talented freshman Brian Wesco and Antonio Williams improving and getting better and being very, very difficult to keep up with by opposing defenses. It all comes down to Cade Klubnik. And I think that Cade, as we talk about a lot of these top teams, I've seen Cade Klubnik step up late in games. I've seen him come down to spots where they were down and he needed to pull his team back in it. SMU,
and he did.
Texas,
yeah.
He has, to me, the composure, the touch, the timing, the natural feel for the game to take advantage of everything that's around him for this team to succeed. I see them winning the ACC, and I don't think that there, frankly, should be much of a debate.
Let me ask you this before I get to my part here. What was the pushback and mental gymnastics that people were trying to go over for them not winning the conference?
It was nothing like bad. It was not like trying to frame it as like Clemson's cooked and we don't trust Dabo. It was just more so last year they were 9-3. A lot of the same roster comes back. Do we trust that they're going to take this leap that everybody's expecting? It's a fair question to ask, but I feel like when we've got so much returning production and so many returning starters, we shouldn't be asking that question. Instead, we should be pointing out this team is extremely experienced and gifted. I feel like that there were a lot of people that were missing the boat in some of the shows that I was listening to.
Joe, there are a couple of questions here. Number one, they fired their DC a year ago. Why? They fired their DC. Well, they had a lot of talent and they still stunk. Okay. My question for Clemson, and if there is scuttlebutt, quote unquote, that I want to see, Joe, it wasn't the lack of talent that they had. It was the part about their physicality. We saw Texas go up against Georgia twice and barely get 60 yards running in both games combined, right? Texas ran all over them, and something that Texas just quite simply couldn't do. That same personnel is back. I would bring this up to you again. We talked about this somewhat in the Big Ten preview when we were talking about Jim Knowles and Ohio State. There is nothing about scheme when you're talking about 32, 34, 36, 38 dive or zones. There is no scheme in that. A lot of times when a position I played, it is about, am I going to line up and punch you in your shit? Okay? Like that is it. If you're running a basic dive, I'm so tired of these dudes. Well, the scheme was bad. My brother in Christ. What? Like, stop. Can they fix that under Tom Allen in the physicality part and be all bought in? We all think Peter Woods is going to be very good. Everybody knows how great TJ Parker is. They bring in Will Helt. You got Sammy Brown in the front seven as well. I think when you look at the talent, it is undeniable. When you look at them and the talent that Clemson has, defensively and offensively, they do separate themselves from a talent aspect. I don't think that's clearly not a hot take from NFL guys on a roster. Clemson is at the top when it comes to the ACC. Joe, they had a quote-unquote down year, and they still won the thing.
This is the biggest piece of evidence that I think that we can literally hold up above our heads. They had defensive problems with a DC who, I told you this, I spoke to somebody when I was at the NFL Combine. that told me they did not like last year's defensive coordinator. And they didn't think that he should have been promoted. They didn't even at all, and they thought that he was not a fit to be a defensive coordinator. And they struggled. And with all the ups and downs of last season and the slow start to the year with the way that they played against Georgia, they still won the damn ACC. That's the craziest part about this. In a year that we thought that they were cooked, they won the ACC.
I'm in full agreement with you. I'm throwing this out there as what we saw. What happened in their 3 losses in the regular season? That's not Lenore Sellers breaking 20 tackles in the second half has nothing to do with scheme. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't. He physically outplayed them. Now, if that were one game, I would be like, all right, okay. But it happened in others. Now, Joe, they go into a third season with Riley as their OC. They finally have revamped this wide receiver room with a third-year starting quarterback. That's where everybody's high on them. Defensively, they got it. They just look more like what you think Clemson and those national title runs would look. I just don't I don't know how we're getting to a place where, man, Clemson's got some things to prove. Maybe they got something to prove against LSU in South Carolina. They ran through the ACC like a hot knife through butter. I mean, like they still dominated a lot of those situations. Joe, Dabo went out in the portal and got some players that he thought can play. What is Will Helt? So you're solidifying your front seven. You've built from within. You've done the same thing from the offensive side of things. Joe, I do think they're a national contender. Forget talking about the ACC. Now, if you are talking about the ACC, on FanDuel, they're plus 110 to win the conference. They have separated themselves amongst the pack. The third team to the first team is an astronomically big number. You got Louisville on FanDuel at plus 750, and you got Clemson at plus 110. Again, I would just say the talent is everywhere. And listen, I got to say this because we had a conversation about this a year ago. I'm not out on Dabo. The game changed. Dabo didn't, okay? And it's somewhat bitten. It doesn't stop how good of a coach he is. It doesn't stop how good that they've recruited from within. They've had some guys leave. Some things have changed. He's changed his philosophy on some things. Good for him. But, Joe, there's not really a level that they have that I'm not saying, okay, yeah, they can be good there. Can the offensive line hold up, and can you stop the run? Those were the two things that I thought last year that really hindered you. If you are better in those things, Joe, they're going to find themselves in the top 4 to 5 in the playoff.
By the way, their win total on FanDuel is 9.5, which I would really strongly consider taking the over. The odds on it are minus 220, so it's not super. If there was a way to tease that up to 10.5,
right?
Yeah, right. If I could get that up to 10.5, if there's an alt number out there, which I haven't checked, I would strongly consider taking it. But I understand the concerns that you just brought up from last year and how does it turn over to this year. I slightly disagree with what you're saying. I look, I get it. We had this conversation in other previews with teams that were getting punched in the mouth on the ground. That is something that doesn't just completely go away. But
I agree.
I think that Tom Allen brings a completely different identity to this defense. They defensively did not look like they had the level of intensity that they should have. I think that this year is going to be completely different. And one of my biggest misses was saying that Tom Allen was not a good defensive coordinator hire, and I was completely wrong. This move is one that I think is often forgotten by those who follow college football, cover college football, that this was one of the most underrated pickups for a coordinator hire of the offseason. They needed a guy who's not only experienced, someone who's been a head coach, and who's been a high-level defensive coordinator for a team that got to the Final Four. We have the blueprint of what he literally did last year with a fantastic defense that I would argue this Clemson unit is more talented, but we have a blueprint for what he did where he stepped in for one season, taking over a team that was already loaded with dudes and turned them into a statistical nightmare, dominant squad that was impossible to move the ball against. I think that they're going to be able to unlock, or he's going to be able to unlock this Clemson unit, because there's literally 4 guys on here that have the potential to go in the first round in 2026.
Can't be in the top 75 in rush defense in the second half, and for me not to say it's a question. I get what you're saying. I agree with the Tom Allen thing. Does LSU have any idea in week 1 what to expect? I say no. I think that they more than clearly can win that game, as we've talked about on here. Joe, they're just head and shoulders more talented than everybody that they're going to face in the ACC. We've previewed them. We've talked about their schedule. But, Joe, offensively and defensively, I mean, they've got so much returning, man. And are we going to assume that they have not taken the next step? I think when you go into an offseason, you assume that a team's going to take the next step. And I'm with you. I think Clemson's going to win the ACC yet again. And Dabo and company are going to find themselves in the playoffs, and off to the races they go.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. And the last part I would throw in with this, out of any team that we're trying to project and to predict for that isn't coached by Kirby Smart or by Ryan Day, Clemson should be the safest one to turn to. This isn't his most gifted roster, but he has gone on national title runs. He's won national championships when he's had similar levels of talent at all these position groups that we just spent all this time talking about. I am going to bet on Dabo. As much as I've hated on him in the past, I'm going to bet on Dabo when he has the dudes to dominate. He takes full advantage of it.
Very well could. Very well could. We'll see. I mean, Joe, all right, hold on. Let me ask you this. Are you worried about their run game at all?
A little bit. It sounds like they're getting really creative with some of the bodies that they're using. I believe they moved
the wide receiver.
Big wide receiver to running back. That would be, if I had to circle something that causes problems, is not being able to run the rock. And that was ultimately something that kind of hurt them in the Texas game. It was a little bit of a problem in the SMU game when Phil Maffa was banged up. So, yeah, I think it should be discussed, but I think that they've got a bit of a recharged unit, so it could end up not being an issue.
Clemson fans saw a converted wide receiver make a move on a bag drill, and they were just like, "Oh, I'm completely balled in," kind of like me on Sean Mateer, I guess. Yeah. I do think the run game will be a question. Let's see if they can run the rock on LSU and moving forward. Yep. If they can, I think that we're all in there that they could be a Final Four team.